At a crowded high school graduation on a Marine base, a quiet single father sat in the back row, nervously filming as his twin daughters walked across the stage. He wore a plain jacket, trying to blend in among the proud families and uniformed guests. But when a USMC captain overseeing security scanned the audience, his eyes locked onto a partially visible tattoo on the father's wrist. The design was unmistakable, a highly classified unit mark tied to a mission that changed the Marine Corps years ago. The captain froze in place, all color draining from his face, realizing the quiet man in the back row was not just another parent. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories of quiet courage and hidden sacrifice, consider subscribing. What the captain saw next would reveal a truth no one in that auditorium could have imagined. The gymnasium smelled like floor polish and anticipation. Red, white, and blue banners hung from the rafters, their edges curling slightly in the heat. The marching band warmed up in the corner, tubas and trumpets blending into a wall of noise that bounced off the cinder block walls. Families packed the bleachers, shoulder to shoulder, 3 generations deep in some rows. Mothers adjusted corsages on their daughters. Fathers held up phones, checking angles for the perfect shot. Grandparents dabbed at their eyes before the ceremony even started. Younger siblings squirmed in pressed clothes, bored and restless. In the back row, tucked behind a support beam, sat a man who seemed determined not to be seen. Ethan Graves was weathered in a way that suggested miles rather than years. His bomber jacket was faded olive green, the kind you find at surplus stores with no story attached. He wore jeans and work boots, practical and forgettable. His hair was cut short, almost military, but not quite. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the camera app on his phone. Around him, families leaned into each other, laughing, taking selfies, adjusting ties and dresses. Ethan kept his distance. When someone accidentally bumped his shoulder climbing past, he nodded politely but said nothing. He did not smile. He did not make small talk. He simply waited. His eyes scanned the rows of graduates seated on folding chairs near the stage, caps and gowns in navy blue, tassels swaying as students whispered to each other. He found them quickly. Harper and Sutton Graves, fraternal twins, both with their mother's dark curls, both sitting near the middle of the 3rd row. Harper was adjusting her cap. Sutton was leaning over, whispering something that made Harper laugh. Ethan exhaled slowly, his chest rising and falling with the kind of control that comes from practice. His thumb hovered over the red record button. He did not press it yet. A woman beside him leaned closer, her perfume floral and sweet. She had kind eyes and a name tag that read, Guest of Honor Family. She smiled warmly. "Are those your girls?" Ethan glanced at her, surprised by the intrusion. "Yeah." "The twins. They are beautiful. You must be so proud." She tilted her head. "Is their mom here?" There was a pause, just a fraction of a second, but it was enough to change the air between them. She passed. Few years back. The woman's face fell. Her hand moved instinctively toward his arm, but stopped short. "I am so sorry. I did not mean to bring up something painful." Ethan lifted his phone, signaling the end of the conversation. "It is fine." He focused on the screen, framing the shot. The woman turned away, her expression guilty. On stage, the principal stepped up to the microphone. The feedback screeched for a moment, and the crowd quieted. "Welcome, families, friends, faculty, and most importantly, our graduates. Today we celebrate not just an ending, but a beginning." The applause was immediate and thunderous. Ethan lifted his phone higher, trying to get a clear view over the heads in front of him. As he stretched, his jacket sleeve rode up slightly, exposing his left wrist. There was ink there, black and angular, geometric. He pulled the sleeve down quickly, almost reflexively, and adjusted his grip on the phone. Near the side entrance, Captain Marcus Reed entered with 2 junior Marines flanking him. He was in dress uniform, the kind that made civilians stand a little straighter when he passed. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp. This was routine, base security during a public event, nothing more. He moved along the perimeter with practiced efficiency, his gaze sweeping over faces, checking exits, noting body language. One of the Marines, Corporal Alvarez, followed a few steps behind, silent and alert. Reed's eyes drifted over the back rows, cataloging each person in a mental file. Older man, veteran, posture gave it away. Young mother, distracted, phone out. Single father, bomber jacket, holding his phone like it might break. Reed moved past Ethan without pause, but something tugged at the edge of his awareness. He stopped, turned slightly. His eyes found Ethan again. The man had shifted his phone to his left hand, adjusting the zoom. His jacket sleeve had ridden up again. Reed saw the tattoo. Just a glimpse. Black ink. Clean lines. Familiar in a way that made his pulse quicken. His hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm, fingers brushing the holster before he caught himself. He took a step closer, trying to see more without drawing attention. Ethan lowered the phone. The sleeve fell back into place. Reed stood frozen. His breathing had changed, shallow, controlled. He told himself he was mistaken. It had been over a decade. Tattoos like that were common enough. Military ink was everywhere on a base like this. But the design, the placement, the way it wrapped around the wrist like a brand. Reed keyed his radio, his voice low and tight. Reed to Alvarez. I need you at my position, now. Alvarez appeared within seconds, his expression neutral but alert. What is the situation, sir? Reed did not answer right away. He was watching Ethan, the way the man sat, the economy of motion, the controlled breathing, the awareness, that man in the bomber jacket. Run a visual check. Discreetly. Alvarez frowned but did not question the order. He circled around the perimeter, positioning himself for a better angle. Reed stayed where he was, eyes locked on Ethan. His mind was racing, pulling fragments of memory from a place he had tried to bury. On stage, the principal was reading through the opening remarks. The first few names were called, families cheered, students walked across the stage, shaking hands, receiving diplomas. The energy in the room was electric. Ethan remained still, phone up, recording everything. His focus was absolute. He did not check his surroundings. He did not glance at the Marines near the entrance. He was entirely present for his daughters. The principal reached the G section. Harper Elaine Graves. Ethan stood with the rest of the crowd. His face softened in a way that made him look younger. He held the phone high, trying to get a clear shot over the families in front of him. Harper walked across the stage, her movements shy but determined. She accepted her diploma with both hands, smiled at the camera held by the school photographer, and walked off stage left. The applause was warm and sustained. Ethan was smiling now, really smiling, and for a moment he looked like any other proud father. As he stretched to follow Harper with the camera, his jacket sleeve pulled back completely. Reed saw it fully this time. The trident, the chevron, the twin stars arranged in a pattern that should not exist. His blood turned cold. That was not just military ink. That was a unit identifier, one that had never been officially documented, one that belonged to operators who were never supposed to be acknowledged, one that was tied to a mission Reed would never forget. Fallujah, November 2012. Firebase matchbook. 37 Marines pinned down in a collapsing compound. No air support, no reinforcements. Command had written them off. The insurgents were closing in from 3 sides. Ammunition was running low. The wounded were stacking up faster than the medics could triage. Reed had been a lieutenant then, young and green, leading a fire team that was barely holding the perimeter. He remembered the radio call, the cold, clinical voice on the other end. Extract not feasible. Hold position. Reinforcements unavailable. They were going to die there. All of them. Then, out of the darkness, 4 men appeared. No call sign, no identification. They moved like shadows, cutting through insurgent lines with surgical precision. Reed never saw their faces clearly, just silhouettes against the firelight. One of them stayed behind to carry Reed's wounded lance corporal while taking fire from 3 directions. Another cleared a path through the rubble. By the time the sun came up, all 37 Marines were out. The 4 men vanished before anyone could thank them, before anyone could ask their names. Reed had seen the ink that night, just a glimpse on one of the men's wrists as he reloaded, the trident, the chevron, the stars. He had tried to find out who they were, submitted reports, asked questions. Every inquiry hit a wall. The mission was never acknowledged. The extraction never happened. The 4 men did not exist. until now. Reed keyed his radio again, his voice barely controlled. "Alvarez, stand down. Do not approach." "Sir?" I said, "stand down." Alvarez hesitated, then stepped back. Reed could feel his own heartbeat in his throat. He was staring at a ghost. On stage, the principal continued. Sutton Renee Graves. Ethan lowered his phone briefly, then raised it again as his second daughter walked across the stage. Sutton moved with more confidence than Harper, her smile wide and unguarded. She accepted her diploma, waved at someone in the crowd, and walked off stage. The applause was just as loud. Ethan was recording it all, his expression unguarded for the first time. His eyes were wet, but he was smiling. The twins embraced briefly off stage, visible through the gap in the curtains. Ethan lowered the phone and wiped his eyes quickly, almost embarrassed. Reed stood motionless. His mind was spinning. He should report this. Protocol was clear. Unidentified military ink tied to classified operations. Potential security breach. But his hand would not reach for the radio, because somewhere deep in his chest, beneath the years of training and discipline, there was something stronger. Debt. In the far corner of the auditorium, partially obscured by a camera tripod set up for the school's official video, a man in a gray suit watched through a telephoto lens. He was not part of the faculty. He was not a parent. His credentials, clipped to his lapel, said Media Liaison, but no one had checked them closely. He adjusted the focus on the lens, centering on Ethan. Then he shifted slightly, capturing Captain Reed's frozen expression. He lowered the camera, pulled out his phone, typed a single message. Confirmed. Target is active. He is here. The man's name was Lawson. He pocketed the phone and moved toward the side exit, his movements casual and unhurried. Reed saw him leave. His instincts, honed over years of combat and close calls, screamed a warning. He turned back to Ethan, who was now making his way down the bleachers toward the main exit. His head was down. His shoulders were slightly hunched. He moved like someone who did not want to be noticed. Reed's radio crackled. "Captain, we have got an unidentified vehicle at the east gate, requesting your presence." Reed did not respond. He was watching Ethan disappear into the crowd. Outside, the lawn was chaos. Families swarmed graduates with flowers, balloons, and tearful embraces. The sun was bright and unforgiving. The air smelled like cut grass and sunscreen. Ethan hung back near the edge of the crowd, letting Harper and Sutton have their moment with friends. He stood with his hands in his pockets watching. A few other parents glanced at him, curious, but no one approached. He was good at being invisible. Captain Reed followed at a distance, keeping Ethan in sight. His chest was tight. His mind was divided between duty and something he could not name. He watched as Ethan finally moved toward his daughters. Harper saw him first and broke into a run, throwing her arms around him. Sutton followed, and the three of them stood in a tight circle, Ethan's arms wrapped around both girls. He was whispering something that made Harper laugh and Sutton roll her eyes. For a moment, Reed saw only a father. Then Ethan's jacket shifted again, and the tattoo caught the sunlight. Reed pulled out his phone, opened a secure military database. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Then he typed, Ethan Graves. The search loaded, a spinning icon. Then a result appeared. Reed's face went white. Ethan Graves, deceased. Date of death, November 17th, 2013. He looked up sharply. Ethan and his daughters were walking toward the parking lot now, Harper still holding onto his arm. Reed stared at the screen, then back at the man. The man at the graduation was officially dead. Ethan unlocked his truck, a beat-up Silverado with a faded bumper sticker that read, "Proud parent of an Oceanside grad." Harper and Sutton were laughing about something, their voices bright and carefree. Ethan opened the door for them, his movements automatic. But as he reached for the handle, he paused. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. It was a habit he had never broken. In the reflection, standing near the curb, partially obscured by a row of parked cars, was the man in the gray suit, Lawson, watching. Ethan's jaw tightened. His hand drifted to his wrist. He adjusted his sleeve, covering the tattoo completely. Harper climbed into the truck. "Dad, you okay?" Ethan forced a smile. "Yeah, just proud." He climbed into the driver's seat. "Let us get out of here. Dinner is on me." Sutton noticed his eyes in the mirror. You keep checking behind us. What is wrong? Nothing. Just careful. You are always careful. Ethan started the engine and pulled out slowly, deliberately not looking back. But in the rearview mirror, he saw Lawson pull out his phone. Ethan's grip on the steering wheel tightened. His daughters were talking, excited about graduation parties and summer plans, but he was only half listening. His mind was somewhere else, somewhere darker, somewhere he had promised himself he would never go back to. Captain Reed returned to his office on base. The air conditioning was broken and the room was stifling. He sat at his desk and stared at the computer screen. Ethan Graves. Deceased. He typed another search. SEAL Team, Fallujah, 2012, unacknowledged extraction. Nothing. He tried again. Classified DevGru operations, Iraq, Firebase matchbook. Still nothing. Everything had been scrubbed. Every record, every mention, every trace. This was not just a classified mission. This was an erasure. His phone rang. It was Alvarez. Captain, we have got a flag. Someone just ran a deep background check on a civilian named Ethan Graves. The query came from an external agency. Reed's stomach dropped. Where did it originate? DOD. But it has been rerouted 3 times. Whoever is asking does not want to be traced. When? 30 minutes ago. Reed stood so quickly his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. I need an address. Now. If this story made you think of someone who sacrificed everything without asking for recognition, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, stories that reveal the heroes hiding in plain sight, subscribe and stay with us. Because what happens next will change everything. The diner was small and worn, the kind of place where the menu hadn't changed in 20 years and nobody minded. Vinyl booths with duct tape patches covered the seats, some of them peeling at the edges. A jukebox in the corner that no longer worked sat collecting dust, its glass front clouded and cracked. The smell of grease and coffee hung in the air, thick and permanent, mixed with the faint scent of cleaning solution that never quite masked the decades of use. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a yellowish glow that made everything look slightly faded. The floor was black and white checkered tile, scuffed from years of foot traffic. Ethan sat across from Harper and Sutton in a booth near the back, watching them devour burgers with the kind of hunger that only teenagers possess. They were talking over each other, laughing about something that had happened during the ceremony, their voices bright and unguarded. He picked at his fries, moving them around his plate without eating. His phone sat face down on the table. He had checked it 4 times in the last 10 minutes. Each time, the screen was blank. No messages, no missed calls. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Sutton noticed first. She always did. You are being weird. I am not being weird. Ethan tried to sound casual, but his voice came out flat. You have checked your phone like 10 times. Harper wiped ketchup from her fingers with a napkin. What are you looking for? Just making sure I got good video of you two. He forced a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Sutton leaned back against the booth, studying him with the kind of scrutiny only a daughter can manage. Her arms crossed, her eyes narrowed slightly. You are lying. Ethan set his fork down, the metal clinking against the ceramic plate. I am not lying. I am just making sure the footage is clear. I want to be able to watch it later without any issues. Harper smirked, her expression softening into something playful. You cried, didn't you? I did not cry. You totally cried. Sutton grinned, leaning forward. We saw you wiping your eyes when Harper walked across the stage. Ethan allowed himself a small smile, genuine this time. Maybe a little. But can you blame me? My daughters just graduated high school. Harper laughed. Dad, you are such a softie. There was a beat of comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who have spent years learning each other's rhythms. The diner hummed around them. A waitress refilled coffee at another table. A couple in the corner shared a piece of pie. The bell above the door chimed as someone entered. Ethan glanced toward the sound reflexively, scanning the new arrival. An older man in a baseball cap, harmless. He turned back to his daughters. Then Harper's expression shifted. Her smile faded, replaced by something more serious. Something searching. Dad, do you ever think about Mom during stuff like this? Ethan's smile disappeared, his hand stilled on the edge of his plate. Every day. Do you think she would have been proud? Harper's voice was gentle, almost tentative. She already was. Every day she had with you two. Ethan's throat tightened. Your mom was the strongest person I ever knew. She would have been so proud of both of you today. Sutton fidgeted with her napkin, folding and unfolding it into smaller and smaller squares. Do you think she would be proud of you too? Ethan froze. His hand went still. What do you mean? I don't know. Sutton looked down at the napkin in her hands. You just never talk about what you did. Before us. Before Mom got sick. It is like there is this whole part of your life we don't know anything about. There is nothing to talk about. Ethan's voice was quieter now, more guarded. But you were in the military, right? Harper leaned forward, her elbows on the table. We have seen the box in your closet. The uniform, the medals. Ethan's jaw tightened. That was a long time ago. We just want to know who you were. Sutton's eyes were searching his face, looking for something he wasn't giving. We want to know our dad, the whole person, not just the parts you show us. I am exactly who you see, your dad. That is all that matters. His voice had an edge now, a wall going up. But it is not all that matters. Harper's voice was firmer now. You have this whole history. You did things, important things, and you never talk about it. Ever. It is like you are hiding from us. I am not hiding. Ethan's hands were flat on the table now, his knuckles white. I am protecting you? From what? Sutton's voice rose slightly, drawing a glance from the couple in the corner. What could be so bad that you can't even talk about it? Ethan looked between them, his daughters, their faces open and earnest and hurt. He wanted to tell them, wanted to lay it all out. But the words wouldn't come, because once he started, there would be no going back. Look, the only thing that matters is what I'm doing now. And right now, I'm sitting with my brilliant, beautiful daughters who just graduated high school. That is all I need. That is all I want to be. Harper nodded slowly, but the question lingered in her eyes. Sutton looked down at her plate, her shoulders tense. The moment passed, but it left something behind. A crack in the surface. A fracture that hadn't been there before. Ethan's phone buzzed suddenly, vibrating against the table. He flipped it over. No caller ID. Just a string of numbers. He stared at it for a moment, his thumb hovering over the screen. Then he silenced it and set it back down. Harper noticed immediately. Who was that? Nobody. Ethan's voice was too quick. Probably spam. You never ignore calls. Sutton was watching him again, her eyes sharp. It is nothing. He forced another smile, but this one was brittle. You two ready for dessert? They have that chocolate cake you like. They let it go. But the unease remained, hanging in the air between them like smoke. The conversation shifted to safer topics. Summer plans, college preparations. But the warmth from earlier was gone, replaced by something thinner and more fragile. When they finally left the diner, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Ethan drove them home in silence, the radio playing softly. Harper and Sutton whispered to each other in the back seat, their voices low enough that he couldn't make out the words. He watched them in the rearview mirror, their faces lit by the glow of their phones. They looked so much like their mother, the same dark curls, the same sharp intelligence in their eyes. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. That night, Ethan was alone. The house was small, a rental on the edge of town, with thin walls and a leaky faucet in the kitchen. The twins were at a grad party hosted by one of their classmates, and the silence was oppressive. He sat on the couch, staring at the box they had mentioned. It was in the back of his closet, behind winter coats and old shoes. A green footlocker with a combination lock. Military issue. The paint was chipped in places, revealing bare metal underneath. He had not opened it in years. The numbers were still burned into his memory. 17, 4, 32. He stood, walked to the closet, and pulled the box out. It was heavier than he remembered, the weight of it familiar in his hands. He set it on the floor and stared at the lock. His hand hovered over the dial, fingers trembling slightly. Inside were things he had tried to forget. Photos, letters, dog tags that didn't belong to him, a folded flag. The tattoo on his wrist seemed to burn. Then there was a knock at the door. Ethan tensed immediately. Every muscle in his body went tight. His hand moved instinctively to his waistband, muscle memory from another life. But there was no weapon there. He hadn't carried one in over a decade. He approached the door carefully, his footsteps silent on the worn carpet, his breathing slowed, controlled, deliberate. He checked the peephole, his eye pressed against the cold metal. Captain Marcus Reed stood on the porch. He was out of uniform, wearing jeans and a plain gray shirt. His hands were visible, held loosely at his sides. His posture was non-threatening, but there was tension in his shoulders. Ethan's stomach dropped. He stepped back from the door, his mind racing. How had Reed found him? What did he want? How much did he know? He did not open the door. Reed spoke through it, his voice calm and measured. "Mr. Graves, my name is Captain Marcus Reed, United States Marine Corps. I just want to talk." Silence. Ethan stood frozen, his hand on the deadbolt. "I was at the graduation today. I saw your tattoo." Ethan closed his eyes. His worst fear confirmed. "I know who you are, or who you were." Reed's voice was steady, but there was something underneath it. Emotion, weight. Another pause. The air in the room felt thinner. Ethan's heart was pounding, but his breathing remained controlled. Years of training. "I am not here to report you. I am here to say thank you." Ethan's hand hovered over the deadbolt. His fingers brushed the cool metal. Fallujah, November 2012. Firebase matchbook. "You pulled me and 36 other Marines out of hell. I never got to say it then. So, I am saying it now." Reed's voice cracked slightly. "You saved my life. You saved all of us. And I need you to know that I remember. We all remember." Ethan opened the door. Just a crack. Enough to see Reed's face. Their eyes met. Reed's expression was raw, unguarded. There were tears in his eyes, but he wasn't crying. Ethan's face was unreadable, a mask he had perfected over years of necessity. "I owe you my life. You don't know me." Ethan's voice was rough, barely above a whisper. "I know enough." Reed took a step closer, but not threateningly. "I know what you did. I know what it cost. And I know you were never thanked for it. Then you know I am not supposed to exist." Reed nodded slowly. "I figured that part out. The database says you died in 2013. But you are here, standing in front of me. And I need to know. Are you in danger? Why do you care?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Because I saw someone else watching you today. And he was not there for the ceremony." Reed's voice was urgent now. "Professional surveillance equipment, agency level. He was tracking you?" Ethan's jaw tightened. He stepped back, opening the door wider. Reed entered quickly, and Ethan closed the door behind him, locking it. They stood in the small living room, the tension between them thick enough to choke on. The house was sparsely furnished. A couch, a coffee table, a single bookshelf with photos of the twins at various ages. Nothing personal beyond that. Nothing that told a story. Ethan did not offer a seat. Reed did not ask for one. They faced each other like two fighters in a ring, waiting for the bell. Reed spoke first. "I don't know what you did or why you disappeared, but if someone is hunting you, you need to know. You need to be prepared." Ethan's voice was rough, worn. "Who was watching me?" "I don't know his name. Gray suit, mid-40s, professional-grade surveillance equipment, telephoto lens. He moved like agency, CIA maybe, or DOD Black Ops. He left. Right after the ceremony ended. I tried to follow him, but he was gone before I could get a plate number." Ethan exhaled sharply, his shoulders sagging slightly. They were supposed to stop looking. "Who?" Reed leaned forward, his expression intense. "People I used to work for." Ethan turned away, walking toward the window. He pulled the curtain back slightly, scanning the street outside. Empty. Dark. But that didn't mean anything. Reed pieced it together slowly, his mind working through the implications. The unit that pulled us out of Fallujah. It was not sanctioned, was it? Ethan said nothing. His silence was answer enough. "You went rogue." Reed's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "You disobeyed orders. Went in anyway. We did what command would not." Ethan's voice was hard now, an edge of bitterness cutting through. Command had written you off. 37 Marines left to die because the risk was too high, the political cost too great. So we went in. No authorization, no backup, just us. Reed leaned against the wall, his legs suddenly weak, and they erased you for it. They gave us a choice. Ethan turned back to face him, his eyes burning. Take the medals, accept the recognition, live under constant surveillance for the rest of our lives, or disappear. Stay quiet. Let the mission be buried. His voice cracked just slightly. I had 2 daughters who had just lost their mother. They were 6 years old. I could not let them grow up in that world. I could not let them live their lives looking over their shoulders. Reed absorbed this, the weight of it settling over him like a blanket. So you died. On paper. Ethan nodded. Ethan Graves ceased to exist in November 2013. Car accident, closed casket funeral, my team attended. Even my daughters think it was real. They think their dad just happened to have the same name as a dead seal. And the tattoo? Reed gestured toward Ethan's wrist. Ethan pulled back his sleeve fully, revealing the design in its entirety. The ink was faded slightly with age, but still clear. A trident wrapped in barbed wire. 2 stars above, arranged in a constellation pattern. A chevron below, inverted. 4 of us had it. Unit mark. We got them the night before the Fallujah op. Stupid in retrospect. A permanent record of something that was never supposed to exist. What happened to the others? Reed's voice was quiet, respectful. Ethan's face darkened, his jaw clenched. 2 are actually dead, not on paper, actually dead. Killed in operations that were also never acknowledged. 1 is in a black site prison somewhere. I don't even know which country. He paused. And me, I am here. Raising teenagers in a rental house, working construction under a name that is not mine. Trying to pretend I am someone else. Reed sat down heavily on the couch, his mind reeling. Why come to the graduation? Why risk it? Ethan's voice broke, the first real crack in his armor. Because they are my daughters. And I have missed enough. I missed their first day of middle school because I was too paranoid to be seen in public. I missed Sutton's debate championship because there were too many cameras. I have spent 12 years in the shadows, and I am tired. He wiped his eyes roughly. They deserved to have their father there today, even if it meant risking everything. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of shared understanding. Reed looked at Ethan with something approaching awe. You gave up everything. I chose them. Ethan's voice was firm now. There is a difference. Reed's radio crackled suddenly, shattering the moment. The sound was harsh and metallic in the quiet room. Captain, priority alert. The query on Ethan Graves. It just escalated. Someone has been authorized to act. Reed and Ethan locked eyes. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Reed keyed the radio, his voice tight. What kind of authorization? Extraction, lethal if necessary. Alvarez's voice was tense. Sir, what is going on? Do you need backup? Before Reed could respond, the front window shattered. Glass exploded inward, scattering across the floor like ice, catching the light from the single lamp. A suppressed round buried itself in the wall, inches from where Ethan's head had been a second before. The sound was a soft cough, almost polite. Ethan moved without thinking, years of training taking over. He tackled Reed to the ground as 2 more shots punched through the door. The wood splintered, splinters flying. Stay down. Ethan's voice was a hiss, low and deadly. His entire demeanor had changed. The quiet father was gone, replaced by something older, something honed, something dangerous. Reed pulled his sidearm, his training kicking in despite the shock. How many? At least 1. Probably back up outside. Ethan's eyes were scanning the room, calculating angles, exit points, cover positions. His movements were efficient, no wasted motion. Another shot. The lamp exploded, plunging the room into darkness. Ethan moved like smoke, his body fluid and silent. He crossed the room in 3 steps, grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter, and pressed his back to the wall beside the door. Reed followed, positioning himself on the opposite side, his weapon raised. Ethan whispered, his voice calm despite the chaos. When he comes through that door, I will take point. You cover the entry. Watch for a secondary. You sure you remember how to do this? Reed's voice was tight. Ethan's smile was cold, predatory. It is like riding a bike. The door kicked open, the lock splintering from the frame. Lawson entered, weapon raised, night vision goggles down. His movements were professional, controlled, but Ethan was already moving. He came from the side, invisible in the darkness, and closed the distance in a heartbeat. His movements were surgical, each one precise and devastating. He redirected the gun barrel with his left hand, using the attacker's momentum against him, slammed the knife hilt into Lawson's wrist with his right, striking the pressure point with perfect accuracy. The Glock clattered to the floor, twisted Lawson's arm behind his back in a joint lock, drove an elbow into his throat, crushing the windpipe just enough to disable without killing. Lawson dropped, gasping for air, his hands clawing at his neck. The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds. Reed covered the doorway, his weapon trained on the entry point, but no one else came. The street outside was silent. Ethan picked up the Glock and pressed it to Lawson's temple, his knee on the man's chest. "Who sent you?" Lawson coughed, struggling to breathe. His face was turning red. "You know who?" "Say it." Ethan's voice was ice. "DOD Black Ops. Contingency Protocol Alpha 7. He laughed weakly, blood on his teeth from where he'd bitten his tongue. "You were supposed to stay dead, Graves. You broke the deal. I have been dead. For 12 years. I kept my end. Not anymore." Lawson spat blood onto the floor. "Someone leaked your file. Now everyone knows you are alive. Foreign intelligence, rival agencies, private contractors. You are a liability. A loose end that needs to be tied up." Ethan's eyes narrowed. His finger moved closer to the trigger. "Who leaked it?" Lawson's smirk was ugly, triumphant even in defeat. "Your old teammate, Valen. He is selling you out, piece by piece, highest bidder." Ethan froze. The name hit him like a physical blow. His hand trembled. Valen. The 4th member of their unit. The one he thought was dead. The one he'd mourned. Reed stepped forward, sensing the shift. "Who is Valen?" Ethan did not answer. His mind was racing, fragments of memory colliding. Valen laughing during training. Valen covering his 6 in Kandahar. Valen getting the tattoo first, convincing the rest of them to do it. Valen holding Ethan's daughters when they were babies, promising to always watch over them. Lawson coughed again, drawing Ethan back to the present. "He told them where you would be, said you would never miss your daughter's graduation. Sentimental bastard. Made it easy for us." Ethan's grip tightened on the gun. His finger moved to the trigger. Every instinct screamed at him to end it, to eliminate the threat. But Reed's hand landed on his shoulder, firm but not forceful. "Don't. He is not worth it. And your daughters don't need that on your conscience." Ethan exhaled slowly, a long, controlled breath. Lowered the weapon. His hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up. "Tie him up." Reed pulled zip ties from his belt, standard issue for Marine patrols, and secured Lawson's wrists behind his back, then his ankles. Lawson didn't resist, still struggling to breathe properly. "Who do we call? Someone I should have called years ago." Ethan pulled out his phone, scrolled through a contact list that had only a dozen names, and selected one. It rang twice before a woman's voice answered, crisp and professional. "This is Sable. It is Graves." Ethan's voice was flat. "We have a problem." There was a pause. Then, "I will be there in 30 minutes. Secure the asset. Don't let him talk to anyone." The line went dead. Reed looked at Ethan. "Who was that?" "My handler, the one who arranged my disappearance." Ethan sat down heavily on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "Director Sable. If anyone can fix this, it is her. If she wants to. And if she doesn't, then I run. Again. And this time, I take my daughters with me." They sat in the darkness, waiting. Lawson groaned occasionally from the floor, but neither of them paid him any attention. Reed's mind was spinning, trying to process everything he'd learned in the last hour. Ethan stared at the wall, his face unreadable. 28 minutes later, exactly. 2 black sedans pulled up outside. No lights, no sirens. The vehicles were unmarked, government issue. Men in tactical gear exited, moving with military precision. They secured the perimeter in seconds, checking sight lines and establishing a defensive position. They entered the house without knocking, zip-tied Lawson again for good measure, and dragged him to one of the vehicles. He didn't resist, didn't speak, just let himself be hauled away. A woman stepped out of the second sedan. She was in her late 50s with steel gray hair cut short and severe. She wore a dark suit, perfectly tailored, and moved with the confidence of someone who had spent decades in rooms where decisions were made. Director Sable. Her eyes swept the scene, taking in the shattered window, the bullet holes, the two men standing in the living room. Her expression revealed nothing. She walked up to the house, her heels clicking on the pavement. Reed stood at the door, instinctively blocking her path. "Captain Reed, ma'am." His voice was respectful but firm. "Step aside." It was not a request. Reed did not move. "With respect, ma'am, this man saved 37 Marines. If he is here, there is a reason. He deserves better than whatever cleanup protocol you are planning." Sable studied him, her gaze sharp enough to cut. "Is that so, Captain?" "Yes, ma'am." Reed held her gaze. "He went rogue to save us when command wouldn't, and you erased him for it. That is on you, not him." Something flickered in Sable's eyes. Respect, maybe, or irritation. She stepped around him without another word and entered the house. Ethan was standing in the living room, arms crossed, jaw set. He looked like a man preparing for battle. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither spoke. The weight of history hung between them. Petty Officer Graves. Sable's voice was flat, emotionless. "It has been a while. Director Sable." Ethan's tone was ice. "I kept my end of the deal. You were compromised." She glanced at the damage around them. "This is not keeping a low profile. By one of yours." Ethan stepped closer, his voice rising. "Valen, you told me he was dead. You showed me the report. And now I find out he is alive and selling me out? Valen was never one of ours. He was a contractor. Rogue asset." She glanced at the shattered window, her expression still unreadable. "We are handling it." "Handling it how?" Ethan's voice was sharp. "By sending another team after me? By cleaning up loose ends?" She did not answer. The silence stretched. Ethan stepped even closer, close enough that most people would have stepped back. But Sable held her ground. "I stayed dead. I did not talk. I did not write a book. I did not blow the whistle. I gave you 12 years of silence, 12 years of looking over my shoulder, 12 years of lying to my daughters, and now you send a hitter to my door because someone else screwed up?" Sable's expression did not change, but something in her posture shifted. "You are a liability now, Graves. The file is out. Foreign intelligence knows you are alive. That makes you a target, and targets get cleaned up. That is how this works. You knew that when you made the deal, then make me officially alive." Ethan's voice was steel now, unbreakable. "Reinstate me. Clear my record. Give me back my life. That is not how this works." Sable's voice was cold. "Then make it work." Ethan took another step. "Because I am not running anymore, and I am not dying. I have got 2 daughters who deserve to know who their father really is. They deserve to know the truth, and I am done hiding." Sable held his gaze. The room was silent except for the distant sound of the tactical team outside, moving equipment. Finally, Reed stepped forward, his voice firm. "With all due respect, Director, this man has earned the right to exist. What he did in Fallujah alone saved American lives. Dozens of them. If his file has been leaked, that is on your agency, not him. He should not have to pay for your failures." Sable glanced at Reed, her eyes narrowing. "And who are you to make demands, Captain? Someone who owes him everything." Reed's voice was unwavering. "Someone who would be dead if not for him. And there are 36 other Marines who would say the same thing." The silence stretched. Sable's jaw tightened. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Once. I will see what I can do. But you stay quiet. No press, no interviews, no book deals. You live small, you stay off the grid, and if anyone asks, this conversation never happened. I have been living small." Ethan's voice was tired now, the fight draining out of him. "Then keep it that way." She turned to leave, her heels clicking on the floor. Then she paused at the door, her hand on the frame. "Your daughters. They don't know?" "No." Ethan's voice was barely audible. "Might want to change that, before someone else tells them." She looked back at him, and for the first time, there was something almost human in her expression. "They deserve the truth, and you deserve to stop carrying it alone." She left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The tactical team followed, loading into the sedans. Within 2 minutes, they were gone. The street was empty again, silent. Ethan sank onto the couch, exhausted. Every muscle in his body ached. His hands were shaking. Reed sat beside him, equally drained. "You okay?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "My daughters are going to come home to a crime scene. We will clean it up." Reed looked around at the damage. "I will get a crew, military contractors, discreet. It will be like nothing happened. They are going to ask questions." Ethan's voice was hollow. "They are not stupid. They will know something happened." Reed met his eyes, his expression serious. "Then maybe it is time you gave them answers." Ethan didn't respond. He just sat there, staring at the wall, the weight of 12 years pressing down on him. The next morning, the house looked almost normal. The window had been replaced, the bullet holes patched and painted over, the blood cleaned from the carpet, but the air still felt different, charged, like the calm after a storm. Harper and Sutton returned home just after 9, still wearing their clothes from the night before. They were laughing about something, their voices bright as they came through the door. Then they saw Ethan. He was sitting at the kitchen table, waiting. In front of him was a photo album they had never seen before. Old, leather-bound, the kind that held memories too heavy to keep in a frame. Harper's voice was cautious, the laughter dying. "Dad?" Ethan looked up. His eyes were red, ringed with exhaustion. He hadn't slept. "Sit down. There is something I need to tell you." They exchanged a glance, worry flickering across their faces. They sat slowly, on either side of him. Sutton reached out, touching his hand. "Dad, what is going on? Are you okay?" Ethan opened the album. Inside were photos of 4 men in tactical gear. Their faces were obscured by shadows, by helmets, by the angle of the camera, but their presence was undeniable, young, dangerous, alive. The photos were grainy, taken in low light. Desert backgrounds, mountains, urban rubble. "This is who I was, before you, before your mom got sick, before everything." Sutton stared at the photos, her eyes wide. "You were a SEAL. I was." Ethan's voice was steady now, resolved, for a long time. Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I wanted you to have a normal life. And normal does not include classified missions and government cover-ups. Normal does not include looking over your shoulder every day, wondering if someone from your past is coming for you." "What happened?" Sutton's grip on his hand tightened. Ethan told them everything. The words came slowly at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. He told them about the unit, about the missions that were never acknowledged, about Fallujah, about the 37 Marines they saved when command had given up, about the choice he was given afterward, recognition and surveillance, or erasure and freedom. He told them about choosing them, about faking his death, about the 12 years of hiding, about the tattoo on his wrist that he could never explain, about their mother, who had known everything and supported him anyway, who had carried the secret with him until cancer took her. He told them about last night, about the man who came to kill him, about Director Sable, about Valen's betrayal. When he finished, both twins were crying, silent tears streaming down their faces. Harper was the first to speak, her voice thick. "You gave up everything for us." "No." Ethan reached across the table, taking both their hands in his. "I chose you. Big difference. And I would do it again. Every single time. You are my life. You are what matters. Not medals, not recognition. You." Sutton wiped her eyes roughly. "So, what happens now?" "I don't know." Ethan squeezed their hands. "But whatever it is, we face it together. No more secrets, no more hiding. You deserve the truth. You have always deserved it." Harper leaned forward, her voice fierce through the tears. "We are proud of you, Dad. We just wish we had known sooner. We wish you didn't have to carry this alone." "I am sorry." Ethan's voice broke. "I am so sorry." "Don't be." Sutton's voice matched her sister's intensity. "You are a hero. Our hero. And we love you. You are both." Harper nodded. "You are our dad, and you are a hero. And that is okay." They sat like that for a long time, hands linked across the table, the morning light streaming through the new window. The album lay open between them, a bridge between the past and the present. Finally, there was a knock at the door. Ethan tensed, but Reed's voice came through, calm and reassuring. "It is me." Ethan stood and opened the door. Reed was there in full dress uniform, the blues sharp and crisp in the sunlight. Behind him, parked along the street, were several military vehicles, Humvees, a transport truck, Marines in dress uniforms standing at attention. "I need you to come with me." "Where?" Ethan's voice was wary. "You will see." Reed's expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something like hope. "Trust me." Ethan looked back at Harper and Sutton. They nodded. "We are coming too." Reed smiled. "I was hoping you would say that. If you have ever kept a secret to protect someone you love, you understand the weight Ethan carried for 12 years. Sometimes the greatest strength is not in the fighting, but in the silence, in the choice to disappear so others can live freely. But every silence has an end. Every secret finds its moment. Share this story if it touched you. Let others know that heroism is not always loud. Sometimes it is a father sitting quietly in the back row. And if you want to see what happens when 37 Marines get the chance to say thank you, stay with us. Subscribe and find out how this story ends. Because what comes next will restore your faith in the bonds that can never be broken. The drive to Camp Pendleton was quiet in a way that felt heavy with anticipation. Ethan sat in the passenger seat of Reed's truck, his hands resting on his knees, watching the familiar landscape pass by. The coastal highway stretched ahead, lined with scrub brush and the occasional palm tree bending in the morning. Breeze. Harper and Sutton followed in Ethan's Silverado, their faces visible in the side mirror whenever Reed changed lanes. They looked serious, uncertain, but there was determination in the set of their jaws. The morning sun was climbing higher, burning off the coastal fog that clung to the hillsides. The base came into view gradually, sprawling across the landscape like a small, organized city. Guard towers, rows of identical buildings, training fields stretching toward the horizon. Reed showed his credentials at the gate, and the guard waved them through without question. A young Marine, maybe 20, with sharp eyes that tracked their vehicles as they passed. They drove past rows of barracks, their walls painted a uniform tan, training facilities with obstacle courses visible through chain-link fences, the PX with its parking lot half full. Everything looked the same as it had years ago, the same ordered precision, the same sense of purpose. Yet to Ethan, it felt completely different. He was different. The last time he had been here, he had been someone else, someone who existed in official records, someone with a rank and a mission and a future mapped out in deployments and operations. "Where are we going?" Ethan's voice was tight, controlled, but betraying his nerves. The parade ground. Reed kept his eyes on the road, navigating the base roads with practiced ease. "There are some people who want to meet you." Ethan's stomach knotted. The feeling was physical, like a fist clenching inside him. "I don't want a scene. I don't want attention. It is not a scene." Reed glanced at him, his expression gentle but firm. "It is a thank you. One that is 12 years overdue. These men have been carrying this with them for over a decade. They need this. And I think you do too, even if you don't know it yet." They pulled into a parking area near the parade ground, the tires crunching on gravel. Ethan could see vehicles already there, military transport trucks lined up in neat rows, several Humvees, their paint faded from sun and use, personal vehicles with base stickers on their windshields. There were more than he had expected. Reed parked and turned off the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. He looked at Ethan, his expression serious, almost reverent. "You ready?" "I don't know." Ethan's hands were trembling slightly. He pressed them flat against his thighs, trying to still them. "This feels like too much. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything." Reed's voice was calm, steady. "Just let them see you. Let them say what they have needed to say for 12 years. That is all this is. Recognition, acknowledgement, truth." Harper and Sutton pulled up beside them, parking in the adjacent space. They got out quickly, moving to stand near Ethan's door. He could see the worry in their eyes, but also the support, the unwavering presence that said they were with him no matter what. He climbed out slowly, his legs unsteady, feeling like he was walking towards something he could not fully comprehend. The parade ground stretched out before them, a vast expanse of concrete and painted lines. The morning sun reflected off the surface, making everything seem brighter, sharper, more real. And standing in formation, arranged in perfect rows, were Marines. Dozens of them. More than Ethan had anticipated, all in dress uniform. The blue jackets with brass buttons gleaming, the white covers stark against the blue, the medals on their chests catching the light, each one telling a story of service and sacrifice. They stood at parade rest, hands clasped behind their backs, eyes forward. The discipline was absolute. The silence profound. Ethan stopped walking. His breath caught in his throat. His chest tightened. For a moment, he could not move, could not think. He was frozen, staring at the impossible sight before him. Reed moved beside him, his voice low but carrying. 37 of them. Every Marine who made it out of Firebase Matchbook alive. Some of them are retired now, living civilian lives. Some are still active, serving in units across the Corps. Some traveled from across the country to be here today. From California to North Carolina. From Texas to Washington. But they are all here. For you. Ethan's eyes scanned the faces. Some were familiar, aged by time, but recognizable beneath the years. He could see the young lieutenant he had pulled from the rubble, now a captain with gray at his temples. The lance corporal who had been shot in the leg, now standing straight and strong. The corporal who had been 19 and terrified, now a man in his 30s with confidence in his bearing. Others were strangers, faces he did not remember from that chaotic night. But every single one of them was standing at attention now, eyes forward, waiting. The weight of their collective presence was overwhelming. Reed stepped forward, moving to stand between Ethan and the formation. His voice carried across the parade ground, clear and strong, echoing off the buildings around them. Petty Officer Ethan Graves. On behalf of the United States Marine Corps and the men standing before you, I want to say something that should have been said 12 years ago. The Marines stood motionless, their expressions unreadable from this distance. But Ethan could feel their attention, focused and absolute. It was like standing in front of a wall of silent witnesses, each one carrying a piece of the same story. 12 years ago, you and your team entered a kill zone to save men you did not know. Reed's voice was steady, but there was emotion underneath, carefully controlled but present. You had no orders, no authorization, no backup, no promise of recognition or reward. Command had written us off. 37 Marines trapped in a collapsing compound, with insurgents closing in from 3 sides. The official decision was to leave us. The risk was too high. The political cost too great. We were expendable. Harper moved closer to Ethan, slipping her hand into his. Her grip was firm, anchoring. Sutton did the same on his other side. They could feel him shaking, small tremors running through his body that he was trying to suppress. But you did not accept that decision. Reed's voice grew stronger, more forceful. You and 3 other men went in anyway. You moved through enemy fire like it was nothing. You cleared rooms. You carried the wounded. You held the line while we evacuated. You pulled 37 Marines out of hell that night. Some of us were wounded, some were dying. But every single one of us came home because of you. Because you refused to follow orders that said we were expendable. Because you believed that no man gets left behind, even when command disagrees. Ethan's throat was tight, his vision blurred. He could feel the memories flooding back. The heat, the smoke, the sound of gunfire echoing through narrow streets. The weight of a wounded Marine over his shoulder, the desperation in young faces, the certainty that they were all going to die there, and the decision, made in a split second, to go in anyway. To do what was right instead of what was ordered. We never got to say thank you. Reed's voice cracked slightly, the first break in his composure. Command buried the mission. Your names were erased. Your sacrifice was classified. The operation never officially happened. But we remember. Every single one of us remembers. We have carried this with us for 12 years. And today, we finally get to say what we should have said then. Reed turned sharply to face the formation. He raised his voice, command filling every syllable. Attention. In perfect unison, all 37 Marines snapped to attention. The sound was like a single gunshot, sharp and precise. heels clicking together, bodies straightening, hands moving to their sides. The synchronization was flawless, the product of years of training and shared discipline. Then, slowly, deliberately, they raised their hands in salute. The movement was synchronized, flowing like a wave, 37 hands rising, 37 arms held at the perfect angle, 37 pairs of eyes locked on Ethan. The sight was overwhelming, a wall of respect, a monument of gratitude made flesh. Ethan stood frozen. His chest was so tight he could barely breathe. His vision blurred completely now, tears streaming down his face unchecked. He had spent 12 years invisible, erased, a ghost in his own life, trying to forget who he had been, trying to bury the weight of what he had done. And now, standing in front of him, were the men whose lives he had saved, the ones who had never forgotten, the ones who had carried his memory even when the world said he did not exist. His hand moved almost involuntarily, muscle memory taking over. Slowly, shakily, he raised his hand in return. The salute was stiff, unpracticed after so many years of deliberate avoidance. But the form was there, buried deep in his body. His fingers touched his brow, his arm held steady despite the trembling, and for the first time in 12 years, Petty Officer Ethan Graves stood as himself, not hidden, not ashamed, not afraid. Harper and Sutton watched through their own tears, seeing their father in a light they had never imagined. This was the man who made them breakfast, who helped with homework, who attended parent-teacher conferences and worried about curfews. But he was also this, a warrior who had walked through fire, a leader who had defied orders to save lives, a hero who had been willing to sacrifice everything, including his own existence, to protect the innocent and save the condemned. The salute held for what felt like an eternity. Time seemed to stop. The world narrowed to this moment, this recognition, this acknowledgement of a debt that could never be fully repaid. Then Reed gave a sharp command, his voice cutting through the silence. Order. The Marines dropped their salutes in perfect unison. But they did not break formation. They remained standing, rigid and formal, eyes still forward. But something in their bearing had shifted. The weight they had carried, the unspoken gratitude, had been given voice. The silence that followed was different, lighter, released. Reed turned back to Ethan. They want to meet you, if you are willing. Each of them has something they want to say. Ethan nodded, unable to speak. His throat was too tight, his emotions too raw. Reed led him forward, Harper and Sutton still holding his hands, their presence a source of strength. As they approached, the formation broke. The discipline dissolved. The Marines were no longer soldiers in perfect rows. They were men, individuals with stories and scars and lives that had continued because of one night 12 years ago. The first to reach Ethan was an older man, late 50s, with gray hair cut military short and a weathered face marked by sun and time. He extended his hand, his grip firm and warm. Lance Corporal Hewitt. His voice was thick with emotion. You carried me out. I took shrapnel to the leg, tore through the muscle. I could not walk, could not even stand. You threw me over your shoulder and ran through enemy fire like it was nothing, like I weighed nothing, like the bullets were not even there. Ethan shook his hand, his grip firm despite the trembling that ran through his entire body. I remember your face. You kept apologizing for being heavy. Hewitt laughed, a sound caught between joy and tears. I thought I was going to die on your shoulder, thought you were going to drop me and save yourself. But you never even slowed down. He pulled a photo from his pocket, worn and creased from being carried. I have 3 grandkids now, Emma, Jacob, and Sophie. I got to see them born, got to hold them, got to watch them grow. I am teaching Emma to fish. His voice broke completely. I got all of that because of you. Ethan took the photo, staring at the smiling faces. 3 children, young and bright and alive. This is beautiful. They are my world. Hewitt wiped his eyes roughly. And I never would have met them if not for you. My son was born 2 years after Fallujah. I got married, built a life. All of it happened because you decided I was worth saving. Another Marine stepped forward before Ethan could respond. Younger, early 40s, with sharp eyes and a strong build. Corporal Mendoza. You cleared the stairwell, saved 6 of us pinned on the second floor. The insurgents were coming up, and we were out of ammunition. I was 19 years old, terrified. I had never been in combat before. That was my first deployment. I thought it was going to be my last. You came up those stairs like something out of a movie, took them out in seconds. You looked at me and said, we were getting out. And I believed you. I do not know why, but I believed you. Ethan nodded, the memories sharpening. I remember your face. You were crying. I was. Mendoza smiled through his own tears. I am not ashamed of it. I was a kid. But you made me feel like I could survive. Like we could all survive. And we did. I have been a Marine for 23 years now, deployed 7 times. And every time I'm in a tough spot, I think about you on those stairs. I think about the way you moved, the confidence. And it gets me through. One by one, they came forward, each with a story, each with a memory of that night burned into their minds. The chaos, the fear, the certainty of death, and the impossible hope that arrived in the form of 4 shadows who appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. A sergeant with a scar across his cheek. You pulled me out of a burning vehicle. I was trapped. The door was jammed. I could smell the fuel leaking. I knew it was going to explode. And you just ripped the door off. Ripped it off like it was cardboard. A staff sergeant with gray streaks in his hair. You gave me your rifle when mine jammed. Told me to cover the exit. I felt like I was part of the team. Like I mattered. A gunnery sergeant who had retired 5 years ago. You carried 3 of us out at once. Had one over your shoulder, one under each arm. I still do not know how you did it. How you moved that fast with that much weight. A lieutenant, now a major, with command presence in his bearing. You held the line while we evacuated the wounded. I watched you reload under fire without even flinching. It was the most incredible thing I have ever seen. You saved my entire platoon. Some of the Marines were crying openly, tears streaming down their faces without shame. Some were stoic, their emotions locked behind years of training and discipline, but all of them carried the same expression. Gratitude, deep and unshakable. A debt acknowledged, but never fully repaid. Harper and Sutton stood to the side, watching their father transform before their eyes. He was still the man who made them pancakes on Sunday mornings. Still the man who checked the locks twice before bed. Still the man who worried when they stayed out late. But he was also this. A legend to these men. A savior. A ghost made real. After nearly an hour, most of the Marines had spoken. Some had simply shaken his hand, unable to find words. Others had shared long stories, memories spilling out after years of being held inside. Ethan listened to each one, his heart breaking and healing simultaneously. He had carried the weight of that night alone for so long, had believed it was buried, forgotten, meaningless. But here, standing in front of him, was the proof that it had mattered, that he had mattered. The last Marine stepped forward. It was a woman, mid-30s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a firm handshake that spoke of confidence and strength. Sergeant Corrin. Her voice was clear and steady. I was not at Firebase Matchbook, but my father was. Staff Sergeant Michael Corrin. He died 3 years ago. Cancer took him slowly. But before he did, before the end, he told me about you. About the SEALs who saved him. He said he spent the rest of his life trying to be worthy of what you did, trying to earn the second chance you gave him. Ethan felt something break inside him. Your father? I remember him. He was shot in the shoulder, kept fighting anyway. That was him. Corrin smiled, sad and proud at once. He never stopped being a Marine. Even when he was dying, he was tough, stubborn. But in those last days, he softened. He told me things he had never talked about before. And he told me about you. She pulled an envelope from her pocket, the paper thick and expensive. He wrote this letter 6 months before he died. Asked me to find you if I could, to make sure you knew. It took me 3 years, but when Captain Reed reached out, I knew this was my chance. Ethan took the envelope with shaking hands. The paper was heavy, substantial. He opened it carefully, almost reverently. Inside was a single page, handwritten in strong, clear script. To the man who saved my life. I never learned your name. Command would not tell us. Said the mission was classified, that you did not exist. But I saw your face that night. I saw your eyes when you pulled me out of that building, and I knew you were someone who understood what it meant to sacrifice. Someone who knew the cost and paid it anyway. You gave me 30 more years. 30 years I should not have had. 30 years that command said were not worth the risk. But you decided differently, and because of that, I got to raise my daughter. I got to teach her what honor means, what courage looks like. I got to show her that some people still fight for what is right, even when the world does not see it, even when there is no reward, even when the cost is everything. I am dying now. The cancer is winning. But I am not afraid. I have lived a full life. I have loved deeply. I have served honorably. And I have tried every day to be worthy of the gift you gave me. I do not know if I succeeded, but I tried. If you ever read this, I want you to know something. You mattered. What? You did mattered. And even though the world may never know your name, I will carry it in my heart until my last breath. Thank you does not seem like enough, but it is all I have. Thank you for everything, for my life, for my daughter, for the chance to be a father. Thank you. Staff Sergeant Michael Corrin, USMC. Ethan folded the letter carefully, his hands trembling so badly he could barely manage it. He looked at Sergeant Corrin through tears he could no longer control. Thank you for bringing this. This means more than you know. He would have wanted you to have it. She saluted him, the movement sharp and clean and filled with respect. He would have wanted you to know that you mattered, that what you did was not forgotten, that it changed lives, mine included. Ethan returned the salute, his movements automatic now. The letter was pressed against his chest, held close to his heart. Around him, the parade ground was quieter now. The intensity of the moment was fading, replaced by a gentler emotion. Peace, resolution. The Marines began to disperse slowly, moving back toward their vehicles. Some stopped to shake Ethan's hand one more time. Some simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. But the weight of the moment lingered, hanging in the air like incense. Reed approached as the crowd thinned. His eyes were red, but he was smiling. How are you holding up? Ethan wiped his eyes roughly, almost angry at his own emotions. I don't know. Overwhelmed, grateful, broken, whole, all of it at once. Good. Reed's smile widened. You should be. What you did matters. It has always mattered. And now your daughters know it too. They see you for who you really are. All of you. Ethan looked at Harper and Sutton. They were standing together a few feet away, watching him with expressions he had never seen before. Pride, yes, but also understanding. A recognition of the weight he had carried alone for so long. The secrets that had shaped their lives without their knowledge. The sacrifice that had been invisible until now. He walked over to them, and they wrapped their arms around him immediately. The three of them stood there, holding each other tightly, as the last of the Marines drove away. The parade ground emptied, the sun climbed higher, and the Graves family stood together, complete in a way they had never been before. That evening, back at the house, Ethan sat on his porch with Harper and Sutton. It had become their place in the days since the truth had come out, a sanctuary where they could talk without walls or barriers. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and deep purple. The air was cooling, carrying the smell of salt from the ocean a few miles away. They had spent the afternoon talking, really talking, about their mother and the secrets she had kept to protect them, about the missions Ethan could speak of and the ones he could not, about the choices that had shaped their lives in ways they were only beginning to understand. Harper broke the comfortable silence. Can I see it? The tattoo? I mean, really see it, in the light. Ethan hesitated for only a moment, then pulled back his sleeve. The ink was faded from years and sun exposure, but still clear. The trident wrapped in barbed wire, each thorn detailed and sharp. The two stars above, arranged in a constellation pattern that had meaning only to the four men who wore it. The inverted chevron below, pointing down instead of up, a symbol of descent into darkness, of going where others would not. Sutton leaned closer, tracing the design gently with her finger. Her touch was light, reverent. It is beautiful, sad, but beautiful. It is a reminder. Ethan's voice was quiet, reflective. Of what? Harper's eyes were fixed on the ink, studying every line, that some things are worth sacrificing for. Ethan looked at both of them, his daughters, the center of his world, And some things are worth coming back for. I gave up a lot. My name, my history, my identity, the right to be acknowledged for what I did. But I never gave up being your father. That was always the one thing I would not compromise on. Even when it was hard, even when I was scared, even when I thought someone might recognize me and everything would fall apart. I chose you. Every single day I chose you. We love you, Dad. Harper's voice was fierce, almost angry in its intensity. We always have. We always will. And now we love you even more because we know what you gave up, what you sacrificed. You are not just our dad. You are a hero. And we get to be your daughters. And we are proud of you. Sutton leaned her head on his shoulder, her voice softer but no less intense. Not just because of what you did in Fallujah, not just because you saved those men, but because you chose us, because you put us first, because you gave up everything so we could have normal lives. That is the most heroic thing anyone has ever done. Ethan wrapped his arms around them, pulling them close. The streetlights flickered on as the sky darkened, one by one, illuminating the quiet neighborhood. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car drove by, its headlights cutting through the growing twilight. Music drifted from an open window down the street. The world continued, indifferent and endless, spinning on without pause. But here, on this porch, in this small corner of existence, there was peace, real and tangible and hard-won. They sat like that for a long time, watching the stars emerge one by one. The sky deepened from purple to black. The temperature dropped. But none of them moved. This moment was too precious, too necessary. For 12 years there had been a wall between them, not of love, but of truth. And now that wall was gone, demolished. And in its place was something stronger, understanding, acceptance. The kind of bond that comes from knowing someone fully and loving them anyway. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Plain Manila, no return address, just Ethan's name typed on a label. He opened it carefully at the kitchen table, his heart pounding with the old familiar anxiety that had not quite left him. Inside was a single document, official and stamped with government seals. He unfolded it slowly, almost afraid to read what it said. It was a letter from the Department of Defense, official letterhead, multiple signatures. He scanned it quickly, then read it again more slowly, making sure he understood. Official reinstatement, record cleared. Status listed as honorably discharged, active reserve. His service record had been restored. Not all of it. The classified missions remained classified, locked behind walls of national security that would never come down. But his name was no longer tied to a death certificate. He existed again, officially, legally, completely. Attached to the official document was a handwritten note on personal letterhead. Director Sable's handwriting, precise and angular, each letter perfectly formed. The note was brief, but the words carried weight. Graves, you earned this. Not just the reinstatement, but the life you built afterward. We failed you 12 years ago. We gave you an impossible choice and expected you to live with it silently. You did. You honored the agreement even when it cost you everything. But agreements should go both ways. And we did not hold up our end. We owe you more than this piece of paper can repay. Stay quiet, stay safe, and thank you for your service. We do not deserve your loyalty, but we are grateful for it anyway. Director Sable. Ethan set the letter down on the kitchen table, stared at it for a long moment. Then he looked at the photo on his mantle. Harper and Sutton at graduation, both smiling, their caps tilted at jaunty angles, their futures bright and open and full of possibility. He exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift that he had carried for so long he had forgotten what it felt like to be without it. The burden of non-existence, the constant fear of discovery, the loneliness of being erased. It was gone, not completely. The scars remained, but the wound had finally started to heal. He picked up his phone and called Reed. The captain answered on the second ring, his voice warm and familiar. Graves, how are you doing? Better. Ethan's voice was lighter than it had been in years. I got the reinstatement letter today. That is fantastic news. Really fantastic. Reed's genuine happiness came through clearly. What are you going to do now? Live. Ethan looked out the window at the street, at the ordinary neighborhood, at the life he had built in the shadows and could now live in the light. Just live, be a dad, maybe get a dog. Harper has been asking for years, and I kept saying no because I was afraid of the attention, afraid someone would see us at the vet or the park and recognize me. But I think it is time. Reed laughed, the sound full and genuine. Sounds like a perfect plan. And Graves, if you ever need anything, you know where to find me. We are brothers now. That does not go away. I know. Ethan's throat tightened. Anne Reed, thank you. For everything. For finding me. For giving me the chance to be seen. For letting my daughters understand. I owe you more than I can ever repay. You don't owe me anything. Reed's voice was firm. You saved my life. I just helped you reclaim yours. If anything, we are even now. They said their goodbyes and hung up. Ethan sat in the quiet house, the letter in front of him, the phone in his hand. The afternoon light streamed through the windows, warm and golden. For the first time in 12 years, he felt whole. Not because of the recognition, not because of the ceremony or the letter or the reinstatement, but because the people who mattered most knew the truth, and they loved him anyway. Not despite who he was, but because of it. All of it. That night, Harper and Sutton came home with takeout. Chinese food from their favorite place downtown. The restaurant with the faded awning and the owner who always gave them extra fortune cookies. They spread the containers across the coffee table, a feast of fried rice and lo mein and sweet and sour chicken. They ate together, sitting on the floor like they used to when the girls were younger, laughing about something trivial, a story from Sutton's day. A funny video Harper had seen online. The kind of easy conversation that families have when they are comfortable with each other. Ethan watched them, memorizing the moment in a way he had not allowed himself to do before. For years, he had been present but distant, always watching the doors, always aware of his surroundings, always ready to run if necessary. But tonight, he was simply here, fully present. The way Harper gestured with her chopsticks when she got excited, nearly knocking over her soda. The way Sutton rolled her eyes at her sister's jokes, but smiled anyway. The sound of their voices, bright and unguarded and full of life. This was what he had chosen. This was what he had protected. Not missions or medals or glory. Not recognition or honor or legacy. Just this. Two girls who had grown into remarkable young women. Two daughters who knew their father was flawed and human and a hero all at once, and who loved him completely. After dinner, they sat on the couch together. Harper pulled up the video Ethan had taken at graduation on his phone. They watched it together, seeing themselves walk across the stage from his perspective. The camera had been steady despite his emotions. Every moment captured, hearing the applause, seeing their smiles. When the video ended, Sutton looked at him with new understanding. You were always there for us, weren't you? Even when you could not be seen. Even when you were scared. You were always watching, always protecting, always. Ethan's voice was firm, certain, even when I was terrified, even when I thought someone might recognize me and everything would fall apart, even when it would have been easier to stay away. I was always there, maybe not in the front row, maybe not in the pictures, but I was there, watching, making sure you were safe, making sure you were happy. We know? Harper squeezed his hand. We know now, and we understand, and we are so grateful. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm, a life that felt both familiar and completely different. Ethan returned to work, but with less fear. He went to the hardware store without checking over his shoulder constantly. He stopped at the coffee shop and ordered by name without worrying. He existed in the world again, not as a ghost, but as a man. He attended Harper's college orientation, sitting in the auditorium with other parents, no longer hiding in the back row or near the exits. He listened to the welcome speeches and the campus tour information, and the financial aid presentations like any other father. And when Harper looked back at him from the stage where the student ambassadors were speaking, he waved, openly, without fear. He attended Sutton's award ceremony for her debate team, held in the high school auditorium where he had watched them graduate just weeks before. This time, he sat in the middle section, surrounded by other families. He stood and applauded when Sutton's name was called, loud and proud, without worrying about cameras or who might be watching. When she came off stage with her trophy, she ran to him and hugged him tight, and he held her, not caring who saw, not caring who might recognize him, because he was allowed to exist now. He was allowed to be her father in public. One afternoon in late summer, he received a call from an unknown number. He answered cautiously. Old habits not entirely gone. "Hello? Petty Officer Graves." The voice was unfamiliar, male, professional. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Fisher. I served with Marcus Reed in a different unit, different deployment. He told me about you, about what you did at Firebase Matchbook, about the ceremony." Ethan tensed slightly but kept his voice neutral. "Okay, I am calling because we are putting together a memorial for the Firebase Matchbook operation. It will not be public, just for the Marines who were there and their families. Something permanent, a place they can go to remember. And we would like you to be part of it, to have your name included, you and your team." Ethan was silent for a long moment. The idea of his name on a permanent memorial was both terrifying and compelling. "I appreciate that, but I don't need my name on a memorial. I did not do it for recognition. It is not about what you need." Fisher's voice was gentle but firm. "It is about what is right. Those men deserve to know you are remembered, that your sacrifice is acknowledged, and you deserve to be honored, even if only by the people who were there, even if the rest of the world never knows." Ethan considered this, weighing the risks against the need for closure. "When is it?" 3 months. October 15th. Camp Pendleton. Small ceremony. Private. No press, no publicity. Just the Marines and their families. A chance to remember together. I will think about it." Ethan's voice was guarded but not dismissive. "That is all I ask." Fisher paused. "For what it is worth, Petty Officer Graves, what you did mattered. It still matters. To those men, to their families, to everyone who came home that night. You changed lives. You deserve to know that. Thank you." Ethan's voice was thick. The call ended. Ethan sat with the phone in his hand, thinking. Harper came into the room a few minutes later, her backpack slung over one shoulder, heading out to meet friends. She saw his expression and paused. "Dad, you okay?" "Yeah." Ethan set the phone down. "Just got a call about a ceremony. For the mission. A memorial. Are you going to go?" Her eyes were curious, supportive, not judgmental. "I don't know yet." Ethan rubbed his face. "Part of me wants to move forward, not look back, not keep reliving it, but part of you wants to honor it." Harper sat on the arm of the couch beside him. "That is okay too, you know. You can move forward and still acknowledge the past. They are not mutually exclusive. You can remember without being trapped by it. When did you get so wise?" Ethan looked up at her, genuinely curious. "I learned from the best." She grinned, then her expression softened. "Seriously though, Dad, if you want to go, we will go with you. Sutton and me. We are in this together now. No more secrets, no more carrying things alone. Whatever you decide, we are with you." Ethan nodded slowly, feeling something settle inside him. "Okay. I will think about it. Really think about it." 3 months later, on a crisp October morning, Ethan stood in front of a small memorial on Camp Pendleton. The location was secluded, away from the main parade grounds, nestled in a grove of eucalyptus trees that provided shade and privacy. It was simple and dignified. A black granite stone, polished to a mirror shine, with names engraved in clean, precise lettering. The 37 Marines who had been at Firebase Matchbook were listed first, in alphabetical order. Their ranks, their names, the date. And at the bottom, separated by a line, were 4 more names. The SEAL team that had saved them. Ethan's name was there, along with the names of the men he had served with. 2 of them were dead now, killed in operations that would never be acknowledged. 1 was still missing, his fate unknown. But their names were together again, carved in stone, permanent and real. Harper and Sutton stood beside him, both dressed respectfully, their hands folded. Reed was there, along with many of the Marines from the parade ground ceremony. Some had brought their families, wives, children, grandchildren. The people who existed because of one night 12 years ago. The chaplain, an older man with kind eyes and a gentle voice, said a few words. He talked about sacrifice and brotherhood, about the bonds forged in fire, about the debt that could never be fully repaid but must always be acknowledged, about the cost of freedom and the price paid by those who stand in the gap. When the ceremony ended, people lingered, No one seemed ready to leave. They stood in small groups, talking quietly, sharing stories, pointing out names on the memorial. Children ran between the trees, their laughter a strange but welcome contrast to the solemnity. Ethan stood in front of the memorial, his fingers tracing his own name. It felt surreal, like seeing a gravestone for a version of himself that had died long ago and was now somehow resurrected. Reed approached quietly, standing beside him without speaking for a moment. Then, softly, he asked, "How does it feel?" "Strange." Ethan's voice was quiet, reflective, like closing a chapter I thought was already closed, or opening a new one. Reed gestured to Harper and Sutton, who were talking with some of the younger Marines, answering questions about their father with pride and enthusiasm. "You have got a lot to look forward to, a lot of life left to live, and now you can live it without hiding." "I know." Ethan turned away from the memorial, facing the future instead of the past. "And for the first time in a long time, I am not afraid of it." They walked back toward the parking area together. The sun was high, the sky cloudless and blue. The air smelled like eucalyptus and dry grass. Ethan felt lighter, not because the past was gone, but because it was no longer a secret. It was part of him, acknowledged, accepted, honored, and he could carry it differently now, not as a burden that threatened to crush him, but as a piece of his story. Important, but not defining. Meaningful, but not all-consuming. That evening, back at home, Ethan sat on the porch again. It had become his sanctuary, a place where he could think without walls closing in, where he could breathe without feeling trapped. Harper and Sutton joined him, bringing mugs of hot chocolate, even though the October evening was still warm. It had become their tradition, hot chocolate on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the neighborhood settle into evening. Lights coming on in windows, families visible through curtains, living their lives. Sutton spoke first, breaking the peaceful quiet. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course, anything." "Do you ever regret it, choosing us over everything else? Over the career you could have had, over the recognition, over being someone important?" Ethan looked at her, his expression serious and open. "Not once, not for a single second. You two are the best thing that ever happened to me. Everything else, the missions, the medals, the recognition, the career, none of it compares. Not even close." Harper smiled, her eyes glistening. "Good answer." "It is not just a good answer." Ethan's voice was intense, urgent, needing them to understand. "It is the truth, the absolute truth. I made a lot of hard choices in my life. I have done things I am proud of, and things that still keep me up at night. But choosing you, protecting you, being your father, that was the easiest choice I ever made, the most obvious, the most right." Sutton leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "We love you so much. I love you too, more than I can ever express." They sat together as the stars came out, one by one, filling the sky with ancient light. The world was vast and complicated and full of shadows, wars and conflicts and endless struggles for power. But here, in this small corner of it, there was light, there was love, there was family. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Months turned into a year. Life continued its forward momentum. Harper started college, studying international relations with the goal of working in diplomacy. She wanted to make a difference, she said, to help people, to prevent conflicts before they started. Ethan wondered if his story had influenced her choice, but he did not ask. Sutton joined her school's mock trial team and discovered a passion for law and justice. She won regional competitions, her arguments sharp and persuasive. She talked about becoming a prosecutor or a defense attorney, about standing up for people who could not stand up for themselves. Again, Ethan wondered about his influence but said nothing. He simply supported them, attended their events, cheered them on. Ethan continued working construction, but he also started volunteering. He reached out to veteran organizations, offering to help other former service members transition to civilian life. He understood what it meant to lose your identity, to feel disconnected from the world, to carry weight that no one else could see, and he wanted to help others find their way. He led support groups, offered one-on-one mentoring, helped with job placement and housing. It gave him purpose, a way to use his experience for good. One day in early spring, he received a package. Overnight delivery, no return address, but the postmark was from overseas, Germany. He opened it carefully, old instincts making him cautious. Inside was a photograph. 4 men in tactical gear, faces partially visible this time. Younger versions of themselves, before Firebase Matchbook, before everything changed. And written on the back, in handwriting he recognized immediately, was a single sentence. "Thank you for never forgetting. Valen." Ethan stared at the photo for a long time. His emotions were complicated, conflicted. Valen had betrayed him, had sold information that put him and his daughters at risk, had broken the bond that was supposed to be unbreakable. But Valen had also been his brother, had saved his life more than once, had been there in the darkest moments. The betrayal did not erase the history. It complicated it, made it painful, but it did not erase it. He placed the photo in the green footlocker alongside the other memories, the medals he had never worn, the letters from Marines he had saved, the flag from his fake funeral. Then he closed the lid and locked it. Some ghosts did not need to be exorcised. They just needed to be acknowledged and set aside, remembered but not dwelt upon, honored but not allowed to control the present. Life continued. Ethan attended Harper's end-of-year presentation at college, where she spoke eloquently about conflict resolution. He sat in the audience, beaming with pride. He went to Sutton's mock trial championship, watching her dismantle the opposing team's arguments with surgical precision. He went to barbecues with Reed and the other Marines from Firebase Matchbook. They became friends, real friends, not just brothers in arms. They talked about sports and politics and their kids, about mortgages and retirement plans and where to get the best burgers. They were allowed to be normal now, to have lives beyond that, one night. Ethan got the dog, a German shepherd puppy that Harper named Atlas. The dog was loyal and smart and became Ethan's constant companion. They went on long walks every morning, Ethan no longer afraid to be seen, no longer worried about recognition. He existed in the world, a visible part of his community. He waved to neighbors. He stopped to chat at the mailbox. He became known as the quiet guy with the twins and the dog. And that was enough. On the anniversary of the graduation, exactly 1 year later, Ethan returned to the high school. He sat in the same back row, in nearly the same spot. But this time, he was not hiding. He was not afraid. He was not scanning exits or watching faces. He was just a man, watching another group of students walk across the stage, their futures bright and uncertain. Harper and Sutton were not here this time. They were living their own lives, as they should be. But he could feel their presence, could feel the weight of the choices he had made and the life they had built together. As the ceremony ended and families poured onto the lawn, Ethan stood and walked out into the sunlight. The day was warm and clear. He pulled back his sleeve, looking at the tattoo one more time. The trident, the stars, the chevron. It was a mark of who he had been, a reminder of what he had done. But it was no longer a secret or a source of shame. It was simply part of his story, one chapter among many. He walked to his truck, Atlas waiting patiently in the back seat, started the engine. The radio played softly, a song he did not recognize. He rolled down the windows. The air smelled like cut grass and possibility. And for the first time in more than 12 years, Ethan Graves was not running. He was not hiding. He was not pretending to be someone else. He was simply living, existing fully in the world. And that was more than enough. The house was empty when he arrived, but it did not feel lonely. It felt peaceful, like a sanctuary earned through struggle. He made dinner, something simple, sat on the porch with Atlas at his feet, watched the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. And when Harper and Sutton called later that evening, their voices bright and happy over the phone, he smiled. Not because everything was perfect, nothing was ever perfect, but because it was real, honest, lived in the light instead of the shadows. He had been a warrior, a ghost, a protector, a sacrifice. And now, finally, he was allowed to be a father, openly, proudly, without fear. And that was the greatest honor he had ever received. Have you ever known someone who carried a weight no one could see? Someone who sacrificed in silence so others could live freely? Someone who gave up their very identity to protect the people they loved? Ethan's story is not just about heroism in combat, though that heroism was real and extraordinary. It is about the heroism of everyday choices, the decision to protect, to love, to endure when endurance seems impossible, the choice to be present even when being present means living as a shadow. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the unseen sacrifices around you, share it. Let others know that the greatest battles are often fought quietly, in the hearts of people who never ask for recognition. And if you believe that every hero deserves to be seen, even if only by the people who matter most, then subscribe to this channel. Because we are committed to telling stories like this. Stories that remind us that courage is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is a father sitting in the back row, a tattoo hidden beneath his sleeve, choosing his daughters over everything else. That is the kind of heroism that changes the world. Not through grand gestures or public acclaim, but through quiet, persistent love. One life at a time, one choice at a time, one moment at a time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if you know someone who has sacrificed in silence, someone who deserves to be seen, take a moment today to acknowledge them, to thank them, to let them know they matter, because recognition, even when it comes years late, still has the power to heal.